All right. Hey, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be in this beautiful planet of ours. This is Metaphysical Meetup with your host, the Intuitive Prospector. I am Marc Lainhart, the Intuitive Prospector, here on Fridays. Just update there we go. You can learn more about me right here at marclainhart.com or internet search the Intuitive Prospector if that is what you're into. We cover a lot of things on Fridays at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, so check your local time zone where you're at in the world, and adjust my microphone here. And we tackle things like what's known and what's not known, different perspectives, broader perspectives, whether it's metaphysics, whether it's spiritual, whether it could, scientific, pseudoscience, you can prove it, but you can't disprove it. A lot of different things that we work with on the journey here. Something that I've been, since my mid-20s, been very passionately curious about the world and my interaction in this world, if you will. And I always say life is like a wrecking ball, and sometimes we just have to be Gumby and hold on and be flexible, and all the different things of life that comes at us, right? So we cover everything from are there extra dimensional beings, aliens? Is there another galaxy like Star Wars or Star Trek? Is there, what happens after death and dying? What is the Loch Ness Monster? What is Bigfoot? What is, the future, things that, just us and the human experience. And, it's just something I've been doing for a while. I've just come on Fridays and good morning to my team, keeping the comments positive, inspiring, encouraging, motivating, because, there's a lot of shit out there on social media. So I really try to emphasize using my platforms for positivity through social media, whether it's here on the Intuitive Prospector Facebook Live page, over on my YouTube channel, or TikTok or Instagram, or there's a lot out there. I know, but I just want to say thank you to my team for keeping this community a positive, safe space. We don't get into. We can have debates, of course, but we don't get into political viewpoints and because you're entitled to your opinions, you're just not entitled to your facts, right? That's what we've seen in this world. And it's a very divided world. There's a lot of what I say keyboard warriors, where people act differently behind the keyboard than they do when they're in person. But we just try to create this safe space for community, for unity, for inspiration, for encouragement, for motivation, and to give you topics to think about, things that are going on in our world. I started coming into my abilities years ago in my mid 20s, my late 20s, 27 to be exact. But that was that was induced by severe traumas and tragedy, which I write and talk about today as the TNT that blew up my life and put me on a different trajectory, if you will, to start asking these bigger questions, to start asking what it is, why we're here, what's the purpose, what's the plan, and I had posted the other day from I believe it was, I think it was Plato. Let's see if I still have it. I don't know if I still have it. Um, but you can get it off my Intuitive Prospector page. But let's see here. Yeah, I'm kind of ad hocing here. I wasn't planning on using this, but it was Plato that talked about having the courage to ask, to seek truth, to find truth, to hear truth. I'm paraphrasing here. It is courage to do that, because you're going to be faced when you start to seek out your own truth, whatever your truths are. You're going to have a lot of people in your orbit, your environment, that is going to be opinionated about that, right? And the only way not to, Aristotle talked about this all the time, and again, I'm paraphrasing. The only way to not be judged or have an opinion is not to do anything, be anything, or say anything, because somebody out there is always going to have an opinion. And when you find your truths and you seek your truths, like I have over the last 2 decades, you're going to run into people who think that you should be living your life according to their will, according to their perspective, according to their viewpoint, and that's not how this works. Now, you can always approach people. I say, people say, "What can I do differently?" You can always be kind, right? Because I believe people are portals, and you can always be kind, but you can always agree to disagree, and also set your boundaries and not let the influence of somebody else influence you to be like them or to not be yourself. That's not what this platform is. This platform is to challenge you to step out into the journey in a bigger version of yourself versus what people see of you. And so you're going to have opinions when you seek your truths, but it takes great courage. And I think that's why Plato was talking about that, because most people don't have the courage, and they'll usually surrender their power based on somebody else's viewpoint, or they give their power away based on family. Family is a huge one. Friends, people that, they have their opinion about you. But again, opinions are like eyebrows and elbows, and almost everybody on the planet has them. Not everybody, but most. I'd say 99% of the people have eyebrows at least, or elbows. I know you. But it just goes to show you to find to know yourself. And I keep it right off camera here. I have a card that says to know thyself, and on it says self-observation, awakening, self-understanding, enlightenment. And that's what we try to do here. We try to find education and life experiences and soul adventures and knowledge, because I believe that education and life experiences leads us to knowledge, which then, if we choose to, can lead us to wisdom. And then we could even take it deeper with wisdom to try to find that enlightenment. But even after enlightenment, we have to still do our daily human chores, whether it's going out into the garden, taking a nice walk, cleaning the toilet. This is part of enlightenment. And the big thing about this journey is, just as I say up here, as a reminder, you need to let that shit go. Because holding on to it, especially unforgiveness keeps other people in control. And when you realize you're being manipulated, once manipulation stops, rejection will begin, and that rejection comes with opinions and hypotheses and theories about how you should live your life. You won't find that here. So today we're going to talk about the quiet pullback, is something I've been noticing within society. I watch society, I watch consciousness, I watch how people interact, I watch and observe my students and my clients that I consult with. And there's a lot of uncertainty. And that's just the world. The world has always been a place of uncertainty. And we just know more about it because of our technology, our ability to have, one of these in every hand with a camera, with a microphone, with an alert, with a story posting. And you got to remember, when you are in a spiritual awakening, that's what we're going to cover. I'm going to give you some tips about emotions, the unplugging from the matrix, the spiritual awakening, things that I have gone through the last 2 decades with great transformation, including even my appearance, the surgeries I've had over this last year, moving into a new career and retiring from my old career after 23 plus years, 70 pounds lighter, lots of scars, full transformation, doing the self work, doing the dark work. And I would remind people in this journey, if you follow my journey or you follow my work, again, you can learn more about my articles, my book. This is my book right here, Between Worlds Reflections. I like it because if you turn the book upside down, what is upside down? What is right side up, right? And I talk about the reflections and also the journey to understand ourselves and, through different, like I said, people are portals, through different teachers, through different events, through different experiences, everything from meditation to metaphysics to plant medicines, to out-of-body experiences, to near-death awareness, which we call NDA, near-death experiences, many that I have had in my 50 plus years. I'm over 50 now, so I've been on the planet a little bit of time. And so those life experiences, I believe, give me the courage and the experience and the education and the failures. Failure is the greatest teacher. As if you follow Star Wars, Yoda always talked about failure being our greatest teacher, because failure is first attempt in learning. I've accomplished all those, and so I share with people and I help people that may be opening up to their new abilities. Maybe they've had a severe loss, because it's through loss too that we start to appreciate life just a little bit more deeper, a little bit more meaningful. Arthur Schopenhauer, a philosopher, had talked about mostly it is the loss which teaches us about the worth of things, including life, right? Your time. Those things are worth, because until you've gone through loss, you don't really necessarily understand what's important in life, just like I didn't. But I understand that time is our greatest commodity, because it's the one thing we don't get back at the end of the day. At the end of the day, we're another day older. And it's the one bank account we don't know our balance, right? I could tell you all my banking accounts, from my savings to my CDs to my checking to my mortgage to what I owe, the debt. But the one account I never have access to is my account balance of time. When does time run out? And people don't think about that. I started thinking about that after my brothers passed into spirit, through different channels, traumatic and horrible, but still passed through. Because every day, on average, there's about 150,000 people around the planet, without pandemic, without war calculations into that. There's about 150,000 people around the globe out of the population, which is estimated to be over 8 billion now. 150,000 people don't open their eyes. So one of the first things that I do, well, there's two things I do when I open my eyes. One, I say I'm grateful for two things, both of my eyes opening. And then two, if I'm having any dreams, I get into my dream journal, which I have right here in my studio, and I come in and I'll write in my dream journal with about my interactions with, just different experiences or things that I recalled in the dreamscape, because the dreamscape is very, very important, because we have three states of consciousness. One, we're here awake, then we all go to sleep. It's very rare to find somebody that does not at least sleep. I know that there is a condition out there where, gentleman, I just reading, he hadn't slept in 2 years. He couldn't go to sleep, right? But I wouldn't want that for anybody. But awakened, asleep, and then in that sleep state, the brain actually goes into a deeper REM sleep, a different brain frequency, if you will, and that becomes the dreamscape. And so we're communicating at all three levels, and so that's why it's important. I just was having this conversation with my collective, my spiritual growth collective, on Wednesdays about writing, because two of them, one had a dream journal but wasn't writing it when they first woke up, and the other one just got a dream journal, because there's a lot of connections even in the sleep, even in the dream. And then think about it, you're going to be in one of those three states at any given time. You're either going to be in the awakened state, the sleep state, or the dream state. I would say there's even one more that's in between all of those, and that's working with plant medicines and psychedelics and psilocybin and ayahuasca. That kind of puts you almost outside of all three of those for those of you that have made the journey with grandma in plant medicine, like I have several times now. And so one of the things that I've been noticing talking to my clients, um, who I have amazing clients, I have amazing students. And again, thank you to my subscribers that are following here, either here or through other social media platforms. Again, at marclainhart.com, you can get on my Patreon prospectors and my Diamond Sub subscribers. Those links are at the website, or just you can click on the comment section here, and one of my team members will get that to you. And the subscription is something that you may want to start taking advantage of as our world moves to um, a very how can I say this? Because I'm not a doom and gloom kind of psychic medium, right? But we're heading for a period of great transformation with our world. Um, if you follow my journey, I've been talking about this, writing about this, and podcasting about this since 2017, when we were on the verge of entering this next decade of our roaring 20s. And some of the forecastings and some of the predictions that I have mentioned and talked about is the United States is not going to look like the United States in the future. There is going to be a separation. We're too big and we have too many different ideologies, and that's fine, because the world is filled with different ideologies. There's over, 5,000 different religions. There's over, 500 different gods, if you will, or I guess 5,000 different gods if there's over 5,000 different religions, right? So, but what we're witnessing is, um, transformation through divide, because that is part of history. It's funny because I look at what's going on in the United States. I'm reading a really good book right now, and some may not agree with this. John Meacham, who I love, is an historian, and he's a Pulitzer Prizer. He's written a book about Thomas Jefferson and what the early America looks like, right after the Revolutionary War. Thomas Jefferson was the third president, and there's a lot of people that bag on him because he was a slave owner at the time. They didn't know the difference of the time, right? That was part of progression. That's part of evolution. But it's a very fascinating perspective into the past. And that's what I recommend, is learn about the history of who we are, because history repeats itself. And sometimes it repeats itself in the same way. And that's where I'm going with this is we're on the middle of our 2020s now, which I said would be the roaring 20s, a decade of great transformation, a great ascension, but also great divide, which would bring forth either a revolution or a rebellion or a civil war, or even including a world war. These are some of the forecasts that I made that would take place during this decade. And we're seeing that, right? And we are building to a World War III, not one with nuclear capabilities, one with technology and cyber and robots and automation and AI. That war has already started between the big three, China, Russia, and ourselves. Now you're seeing a war of resources, right? Whether it's Venezuela, whether it's Greenland, whether it's Yemen. There are places around the planet that have big pockets of resources like gold and oil. And we use a lot of our components, and these resources are put into the technology that we use in our everyday life. And so people are getting, very worried about what they see going on in the world. And so one of the things that I'd recommend start, especially if you're very sensitive or an empath, or you're having that spiritual awakening, is make sure to monitor what you're taking in through your channels, through the television, through your social media, including this. This is important, and if you break it down, it becomes quite simple. It's spelled out right in front of all of us, but it's not all of us choose to see. And I say that we always have three eyes in life: two to look, and this one called here the brow chakra, the third eye, which is connected to the pineal gland in the brain. A lot of science behind it, a lot of anatomy and physiology to it, a lot of metaphysics behind it, right? And things that I've been studying over the last 2 decades. But when you turn on a television, we call it short TV, because now you're like, oh, what is TV? Television. We turn on our television, and at some point we're going to turn to a certain channel, not just a channel, but what are you channeling by taking in? And through that channel, that is also a program on that channel. And a lot of times I will turn on the TV just to say, has the world ended today, right? I'll turn on a television to a certain channel, to a certain program that's talking about the world news. And what does news stand for? Northeast, west, south. So it covers everything, right? So be mindful of what you're taking in, because it is that old adage, garbage in, garbage out. And when you're sensitive and when you're empathic, or you just have that clear cognizant sense of knowing something's coming, very much of what I do and who I am, it can be very uncomfortable. I call it the burdens and the blessings. The blessings of having a gift to have foresight, to have precog, to be able to do forecasting, but also the burdens of knowing what's coming. And so I'm very mindful of watching what I say now, when it comes to forecasting and prediction models. And am I 100% right? No, I haven't found anybody in life that's 100% right consistently in what they do. You may have hits and you may get streaks, but that's not a consistent, when it comes to forecasting, the weatherman. But the weatherman or weatherwoman has only gotten better because of what? Technology, right? And so it's a burden and a blessing to have these abilities. But if you followed my work and my podcast, Inspired Living, which thank you to you inspired listeners, because you've now made us not only a best inspirational, a best introspective, but also a best spiritual podcast to follow. And you can get Inspired Living wherever you listen to your favorite podcasting platforms, or go right here to marclainhart.com to get that global player, which you can listen to the show from anywhere. It's internet radio, and you can listen to us from anywhere around the planet. No passwords, no membership, no BS. Straight talk, inspirational talk. We had an amazing guest on she wrote a book called Unbroken. It was it was painful to hear, but at the same time, bringing forth awareness to abuse and the foster care system and what was done to her, and how she's bringing that awareness to help other people and other victims. And that's what we do on Inspired Living, right? We always remind people, you are the inspired and the inspiration. Bring your stories and we'll share them as best we can. And so I've been forecasting and podcasting and predicting what the Roaring Twenties would look like, including I said that we would learn that we're not alone officially on this planet. There's another intelligent species, whether you call them aliens or extra dimensional beings. I'm an experiencer myself personally. So that's why I can speak to this from my former life in the U.S. Coast Guard off the coast of Puerto Rico, tip of the Bermuda Triangle, things that I witnessed that I didn't talk about for years that I can openly talk about now. I said that there would also be a major war during our Roaring Twenties, because it's going to be a war of resources and territory, which we're now starting to see unfold in the geopolitical landscape. I also said that we would also have a great coming together, whether that great coming together is realizing we're not alone in the universe or on the planet, or a natural event, which could easily, I'm in Seattle, Washington. Oregon just had a 6.1 off the coast, and that's the big fault line, right? The San Andreas Fault goes all the way up to here to Seattle. Volcanoes, super volcanoes, tsunamis. Mother Earth can change her mind at any time. When we forget that we are just tenants, we are just renters here, and she is the landlord. She can decide. So it can be. We're always inches away from chaos, but it's about what we do with today that matters. And that's why I don't really get into projecting doom and gloom, because that will come. But what we can do is we can be inspirational and be in the present moment and be here to celebrate life, right? To open up all three of our eyes and to help others, to help humanity, help the planet, help animals, help your neighbor. That's what I've really learned from this transformation of doing the self-work, because as an alchemist, I always remind my students, as alchemists, we shouldn't fear the dark. We should study the dark, because it's by studying the dark we become more aware, and then we broaden our perceptions. So good morning to some of you joining in. Good to see you. Hi, Emily. Hi, Nancy. Hi, Carlos. Good morning to you. Hi, Kathleen. Good morning to my mom. Good morning, Carrie. Kathleen said, I had to stop watching the news. It's more opinion than fact. Yeah, it is. Hi, Patty. And break down the word news, north, east, west, south. That's covering all aspects. And now, and I agree with you, Kathleen. I watch different news channels or programs to see what the bias is, because we all have a conscious bias. But what I've known in probably the last 5 to 6 years, you can tell the agenda by a certain program or channel that you turn on, whether it's this, left, center, right. I don't really get into that because I don't subscribe to that anymore. I don't participate, and I only watch to see what's going on, and then I turn it off because I'm also a citizen, right? And a citizen should be informed of what's going on, not only in their state, but in their country, but also the world. That is being a good citizen, a steward, if you will. And one of the things that I've noticed, Kathleen, and maybe you can comment on this on well, and please, if you're new to the show, if you're tuning in, let us know where you're tuning in from, because we have an international audience from people all around the globe. I'll give you a shout out, say hi to you. If you're one of my subscribers, you'll have a badge next to your name, or followers. I'll give you a shout out. I might even do some live readings. You never know with my shows. But what I want to talk about today, on today's episode of Metaphysical Meetup with the Intuitive Prospector, of what I've been witnessing, and it makes sense. I'm not really worried anymore about the state of the world, because I saw this coming. And now that we've caught up to this point in our time, whether, what you see going on in the world, whether it's war or murder or politics or divide, but I can also find the good in the day, because I believe the best is yet to come. And I'm not worried about the future. I think the future is going to still be pretty rocky, especially if we go into another big war, World War III, which I would hope that we would not, because we're not learning from our own history, right? We're due to repeat those that don't learn from history. So that's why it's important to learn history, to read about people, whether it's Thomas Jefferson or the other book, just to give you the perspective of finding your own truths. Two perspectives. One is history, and one is the lost years of Jesus. Understanding that Jesus just didn't stay in Jerusalem as a carpenter, or just traveling around. He actually, there's actually writings that support that he actually went to India for years and learned how to do meditations, learned how to do a lot of what's written about him, but not everything. He wasn't started to be a religion. That wasn't his journey, and most people miss that. He was a consciousness. He was a frequency. So the Christ consciousness is not religious based. It's actually tuning into a certain frequency. That's what he was teaching. And so by reading, and again, only you can choose to do this. I'm just sharing my perspective based on what I've read, and I read a lot of books. I read probably about a book a week, just for the fact books I get even from upcoming shows for Inspired Living, in which we have amazing guests. We have another amazing guest coming on in 2 weeks. Actually, I still have his journal right here, because I'm getting ready for him to be on the show. Learning to Let Go, which is a guided journal, drop everything that's holding you back. His name's John Perkis. He'll be on the show in 2 weeks, and hopefully, if things go right, my producer at Om Times gets everything pulled together, we're going to actually be doing Om Times television with the live interview of the show, and then it will still podcast in the audio format and go out to all the major podcasting platforms: iTunes, iHeart, Spotify. There's a bunch out there. So I'm looking forward to that in 2026, and learning to let go, learning to study different perspectives, because learning different perspectives increases your knowledge and it leads you to wisdom. And then you see the world differently. So I'm not worried about what's going to happen in the world, because it's going to happen regardless of what Mark says or doesn't say. But I'm not really trying to promote any kind of doom and gloom, but we are heading for another big war. We are heading for a war of resources, for placement on certain, Greenland's that fight's been going on, not just in the recent news and the recent administration. This goes back administrations of wanting Greenland because of where it's located. It's one of the biggest islands on the planet. And just to give you a perspective of what Greenland is, it's the largest island in the world, is Greenland. It spans about 2.16 million square kilometers. The island is rich in natural resources and rare earth elements. Again, rare earth elements that go into your technology that you depend on, that you want, including uranium, lithium, as well as a massive reserve of both oil and natural gas. So Greenland is going to be a very hot spot, just like Venezuela is, because Venezuela has the black gold. It has more oil than Saudi Arabia. It has more gold than all the countries combined in Africa. So we're going to see a resource war. And I said it would take place, just like full disclosure of learning that we're not alone, would take place in this decade. And that's why it's going to be such a historical decade for people to look back at, historians, and say, how did we progress from there? Did we grow and evolve, or did we set ourselves back and devolve? Because that is the choice. I know that whatever the outcome is, I know that I'm going to evolve and continue to progress further in the spiritual journey. But that's not everybody's path, and I know that. So there is stuff coming. There is another war coming, which will history reflect it as World War III. It won't be a war of nuclear weapons and not necessarily boots on the ground. It's going to be more technological, more, like I said, AI driven, more robotic driven. If you haven't seen the latest tech summit in Vegas that just happened last week, Boston Dynamics, who I've been following as long as I've been doing this work, almost, these shows over 10 years now. We're going to our 11 seasons of Inspired Living. I remember talking about Boston Dynamics when they first introduced their walking dogs robots. They just released their new latest version with AI called Atlas. And this thing stands up. It's got rotational hips at 360. Its knees can rotate at 360. Its head, and it's going to be implemented into a Hyundai factory starting this year, doing basic jobs. Now, people are going to be screaming like, "Oh, robots are going to take jobs. AI is going to take jobs." Yes, they are, and it's going to be us to humans to say, what are we going to do to advance? What's the next industrial revolution of our time? Just like I've heard it several times that AI is the electricity of our time. So if you go back to the turn of the century, 1902 is when they lit up the first block in Chicago of the World Fair, getting off of gas and lighting lamps to actually electricity, right? And now the world is lit up. We can see the world from space. So these things are naturally going to progress us forward, but at the same time, we're going to have to innovate, right? Maybe that means we work less, right? And we live more, right? There's a county here in Washington State that just officially went to 32-hour work week with the same pay. AI is going to take away some of those meaningless jobs that people do that it soul crushes them, right? Including, I know it pays good money, but we're going to have to find alternatives because robots, automation, and AI. And just go check out the Tech Summit. Type in Boston Dynamics Atlas robot in Vegas because they just revealed it, and it's eye popping. It's not Terminator scary, but I could see robots being used in the future for warfare because that's just mankind, right? We're such a brilliant species, but we're also such a violent species, and we have not progressed to where we need to be. It's going to probably be about another 100 years before we really start to get there. But AI will help us get there because it's going to take away the little jobs that we don't need to do and allow us to focus on concepts like awareness and awakening and taking care of the planet and each other. But one of the things that I've noticed for today's show is what I'm calling it the quiet pull. And what I mean by that is lately it feels like there's a pullback into silence. People are quietly withdrawing. I'm noticing, myself included, I've withdrawn from a lot of what I wanted to do, things that I had wanted to accomplish. And I'm like, I'm just tired. And, it's not the kind of calm, peaceful kind of quiet, but the kind that comes after being overwhelmed for too long. And it's like the system finally saying, I can't keep doing this. I've got system overload. It's like when you open up so many browsers on your computer that the processing, again, processing speed through browser windows, it can't process because it's overloaded. And so it's like this, you've all had this happen. It just starts spinning. It just like, it can't process. It's just stuck. It's just stuck in a loop. And I feel from what I've witnessed from my students to my clients, to even myself, and even just parts of my own personal experience, is people are finally saying, I can't do this. This has been going on. Social media was fun when it first came in, internet when it first came in. I am BC, I'm before computers. So I've seen this whole transition of pre-technology, new technology, full technology. And, for years, we've been pushed to react, if you will. For years, we've, based on especially social media over the last few years and the last few elections, to have opinions, keyboard warriors, opinions about everything, or to choose a side, or to stay loud, right? If I'm loud and I'm telling myself lies and lies and lies, and then I start to believe them, Emperor's New Clothes format, if you will. And again, this has been used throughout history. This is nothing new. These tools have been used by authoritarians, dictators, world leaders, including religious leaders as well. And, staying plugged in, the news cycle never stops. And even the one thing I've noticed as we're talking about this pullback, this quiet pullback, I've even noticed in news cycles, I've noticed some of the people that I observe through their broadcasts are even saying, well, we're only halfway into January and yet it feels like a year because there's always breaking news. There's always something. It's literally like drinking from a fire hose. And so you may find yourself that you're finally getting to the point where you're saying, I can't do this anymore. It's draining me. It's making me sick. It's making me depressed. It's making me have anxiety. And especially as the world continues to grow to a boiling plate to where we will have an outcome of war. For years, we've been pushed to react to this. We've been pushed. It's the old concept. If you take a jar, I don't think I have a jar with me. I'll just use my latest cool mug. Of course, it's Star Wars, right? But if you take black ants and red ants and you put them in a jar, the black ants and the red ants will actually live naturally in harmony. But if I come as an agitator and I shake up the jar, what the fascinating thing is when there's an agitation or an outside um, stimuli in nature, documented by science, the red ants and the black ants will actually start to kill each other because it becomes survival. And a lot of us are in this. This is the social media platform. This is the news platform. This is us inside this jar. And then you have things like world leaders and administrations and global events and religions and egos and greed and power that come in and shake this up and get us fighting amongst one another. That's not wisdom. That's actually ignorance, right? And so what happens is when you're forced to react or when you're forced to choose a side or to stay plugged in, at some point the body and the mind will going to hit a wall. It's going to come up against this barrier. When nothing makes sense anymore, people don't fight or run; they go quiet. And I've even noticed this in the book I'm currently reading right now. People decide even at that time. We're talking the late mid 1700s, right? When this country was just being formed, people go quiet. They don't want to necessarily fight, and they definitely don't want to run or they don't want to debate. So they just go quiet. That's what I'm witnessing. That's what I'm witnessing, what I call the quiet pullback. And what I'm noticing isn't just people talking less. What I'm noticing is people pulling back from identity itself. People, I could spin this up right now and talk about, pronouns, the, they, the, we, I, you. Oh, I don't associate it with that, right? Even people are pulling back from their own identity of who they are themselves. And, from the pressure to explain who they are, because many people don't know who they are, right? That's why this card is right off camera, to know thyself, to know thyself. And when people don't even know who they are, how can they explain their identity if they don't know who they are? And so I'm witnessing this big pullback um, from people not being able to identify or trying to defend their beliefs because they go on social media. And I'm sure there would probably be a comment somewhere here. Hi, Tara. Hi, Kara. Um, if I come on and do a show or, I do a podcast over the last years, I have been viciously attacked from spreading positivity and inspiration and kindness. I always finish all my shows with be kind, be caring, be compassionate, dare to dream, dare to explore, dare to live. And there'll be people that would be, I've even had death threats in my past to be like, you shouldn't be talking about that. And so it's no wonder that people are going quiet because the technology and the social media platforms and people have opinions, you know, you get tired plugging into that. You get tired trying to defend yourself, from performing a version of themselves, because I've seen this to be true. I see people that come on and do their shows. Some are very famous, some are very well known. And outside of the camera and outside of that environment, there are horrible people. There's one gentleman, I'm not going to name drop, but he really promotes himself as this very, connected spiritual awakened guru. But then I know him personally behind the scenes, and he's very fake. He's very driven by vanity and ego and popularity and money, and actually has a criminal record. Right? Goes by a different name because of his past. No judgment, but it's like, are you really being authentic? Are you really truly living your journey? So you see people that um, fake it till you make it. I guess that's a big adage that people say. I don't subscribe to that anymore. I once did when I first started, but now what you see is what you get. And at some point, with all of this quiet pullback that we're witnessing in society, um, again, not trying to defend myself or identify myself, but performing a certain version of yourself based on what you see on the camera, what you see on television versus what's in the real world. And you see a lot of truths coming out. There's a lot of truths that are being revealed. People that you thought were once great people or pedophiles or have done, very nefarious things. Hollywood's a great example of that. And when you stop trying to defend yourself, and when you stop trying to identify yourself and perform a certain version of yourself that no longer fits, what I've noticed is conversations stall. Messages will go unanswered, not because people don't care, but because they're tired in a way that our sleep doesn't fix. Like I talked about earlier, going to sleep is one of our states of consciousness: awaken, sleep, dream, and I even put now plant medicine in somewhere in between all three of those, right? But it's like you're so tired and that you need to unplug. And I always remind people, I remind my students, my clients. I just had a conversation with a client yesterday. Take the time to disconnect so you can make the time to reconnect, because that's very, very important in the journey. And, again, it's not because people don't care. They're just too tired because they've gone to sleep and they wake up, they're still tired based on the stimuli of being shaken within the jar when you're just trying to live your simple life. So one of the things that I would recommend is to unplug from a lot of this construct. And it's not strange, to move into silence. It might be strange for you. For me, I actually enjoy the silence. It's selective. You're choosing to or choosing not to. And, like old roles or old futures or old ideas of how life was supposed to be, are quietly being dropped because we're living in a world that's constantly transitioning and changing day by day. Um, Words don't land the same. Even just doing something. I had one of my nephews and one of my nieces say, "Oh, Uncle Mark, you shouldn't do that." I didn't know. I actually was helping one of my friend's daughters. She was driving, and I'm like, "Well, you're getting your driver's permit. Make sure to be at 10 and 2." "Oh, Uncle Mark, we don't do." She calls me Uncle Mark, even though I'm not her uncle, but she's like a niece to me. I've known her for her whole life. She's like, "Uncle Mark, we don't train. We're not taught to drive at 10 and 2 like I was, right? Because I was driving before airbags. So 10 and 2, actually, an airbag can actually cause damage. So they actually have them lower their hands to a lower, I guess would be maybe like maybe 3 and 6 or something of that nature. So if the airbag deploys, instead of being up here, it could cause you more damage. Didn't even think about it. So I was like, "Oh, thank you for educating me. Thank you for helping me understand." But even certain words that you use or certain certain things that you do is just like you're generational, right? And so we can learn from the younger generations, but the one thing that I'm seeing is younger generations aren't learning from the older generations, and there's a lot of wisdom in the older generations. So respect your elders, respect people that have gone and done this test and have failed several times, because you're being wise by listening to your elders, myself included. But moving into that silence, and again, what your life was supposed to be. I've got a right off camera, my shrine right here, my temple is literally says life happens, because life doesn't ask us what we want. That's life. We just have to buckle up like Gumby and hold on, right? And you try to fill your day with a lot of doom scrolling, right? So no wonder we're all feeling anxious. No wonder we're doing this quiet pullback. And again, it's just I found that words don't land the same because a lot of what we've been saying doesn't feel true anymore to me. Two realities, two different sets of facts. When you're, like I said, you're entitled to your opinion, but you're not entitled to your fact. The world is round. The world is not flat. Somebody would probably debate me. The sky is blue. Somebody would say, no, the sky is purple. It's like we're moving into now the sky may be purple in an alternative technology, visual VR goggles, right? But that's not the fact of science, right? And I love what I do from metaphysics to spirituality and bringing science into that as well. But again, people are so driven by what they're told or what they've seen that they don't validate. And so when somebody says something, a lot of what is being said today to me doesn't feel true, doesn't feel authentic, feels more opinionated. So silence becomes the only honest response that I've started to move into. And you may have found yourself saying, "Enough! I'm tired. I'm broken. I want to heal." Move into silence. In the silence and the stillness is where the secrets lie. I have a stone right here in front as a constant reminder. Listen, and not only listening to the world, but then if you take that word listen and you switch it around, it becomes an anagram, also known as silent. So silent becomes listen, listen becomes silent. And I myself have pulled back a lot of the work. I'm not putting a lot of stuff out that I used to do because just the world feels very weird and it doesn't feel authentic to me. And that's why I feel like we're moving into a next stage of the world war from a historical standpoint, because people are stopped. When you stop communicating and you go silent, um, that's dangerous. History teaches us that. Teaches us that. Hollywood movies have shown that, and I'm watching it. And we're seeing, even with our allies, we're going quiet. That tells me that we are leading up to another conflict, and it's going to be a conflict based on territory and resources, plain and simple. Period. End stop. So here's the part that matters when it comes to the quiet pullback. This kind of quiet is what I call a threshold. Just like when you walk into your door, the door has what's called a threshold, because the threshold used to be, back in the day before floors and doors, you would come in, there'd be a threshold to keep the mud out of the house, and so you'd put straw down. So there'd be straw in front of the door to keep the house clean, because houses back, hundreds of years ago weren't made of wood or steel or today's components. They were made of, things that we could process, wood and hay and mud from that time. And so the word threshold means you're entering into a threshold to try to keep the dirtiness out into a space of cleanliness. That's what threshold represents. And so, this kind of quiet I have found to be a threshold. And what I mean by that, if you don't know how to be inside it, you'll try to fill it with anything. Like I said, doom scrolling, numbing distractions, sex, alcohol, drugs, drama. I know a few people in my life that just love the drama. I do not. I'm not a drama king or a drama queen, or I try not to be. And if I am, I usually will try to call myself out, or my wife will call me out after 30 years, right? Chasing certainty. I found that to be very, very true. There is nothing uncertain in life. The only thing certain in life is change, and letting louder voices think for you. See that a lot right now. I constantly see a lie that's continuously being repeated to where you start to believe the lie yourself. And again, I said this would happen in my forecasting, my prediction models during the roaring 20s of transformation. And I think what we're witnessing is not only the quiet pullback in this threshold of moving into quietness, it's going to lead us to reestablishing a new form of communications, a new form of compassion and empathy, and evolving as a species. That's where I see us going with this. Now, most people, at this time, they'll hear the message and they'll say, "Oh, Marc, you're a seer, you're a psychic," which means psychic means of the soul, has nothing to do with forecasting your future, to be honest with you. But a lot of times what I saw back in 2017 is happening now. So that's why I'm at peace with it. And what I see coming are actually good things. Yes, I see the bad and the doom and gloom coming, but I also see a lot of great things coming. And most people want to believe it first before they actually applaud it or say, "Yeah, you're right." I'm not looking for that. I see it, then I believe it, then it's achievable. See it, believe it, achieve it. You see it here, right? And so what I see coming is, yeah, rebellion, civil war, states succeeding from the United States becoming a different place in the world, World War III between the big three bullies of Russia, China, and the United States. That's going to happen. I see that. I've had dreams about it. I've had meditations about it. I've had downloads about it. Is that concerning? Yes, because I am not one. I believe all life is sacred and meaningful, but wars have been fought throughout history. I think there's a period of like maybe 33 years that we had the longest peace ever in the last 3,000 years. But at some point, we're going to get tired of war. We're going to get tired of, you can only take so much space, right? And that's just assuming that space remains the same. The planet has a history of changing. The poles have shifted. We're in 70% water of the planet. That can shift at any time. And so what was above ground, like Antarctica, which is frozen, could become a shift could completely take place, and Antarctica becomes this whole continent of lush jungles, right? Because it was at one time. Mount Everest was underwater at one time, the highest mountain. So things can change, and I think that's what people forget. But when you're chasing these certainties, when you're chasing, letting louder voices speak on your behalf, because people are, there are people out there that are weak or ignorant or just, want status quo, and that's fine. That's just not my journey, right? And I hope that you'll join me on this journey of, asking for truth, because it takes courage to ask for truth, for what is seen and what is unseen. And there's a lot of things around us that are unseen in the journey. And, and it's because uncertainty feels unsafe, right? That's just psychology, when you're already exhausted, right? So but there's a way to move through this. And I found that some people are learning to stay present in the quiet without disappearing, realizing the silence isn't empty. There's actually a lot within the silence. It's where clarity slowly comes back. It's kind of like equivalent to looking in a boiling pot of water. You can't see a reflection because it's being agitated. But if you turn the burner off and let the water cool, calmness, coolness, smoothness, you can see a reflection in the water. It's the same thing with life, and that's the same thing with silence. And um, that clarity in silence can come back slowly. And beneath the noise, there is a simpler signal, is what I'll share with you today. What you actually feel, what you actually know, what's real when nothing is being demanded from you. If you're noticing this collective withdrawal that I'm talking about today, the quiet pullback, it's often because we're meant to go unconscious during it, just like your breath. You probably haven't been thinking about your breath, but now that I brought it up, it went from unconsciousness to consciousness. Don't think about the pink elephant in the room. Don't think about the pink elephant in the room, right? Now, so from unconsciousness to consciousness, and not to wake up anyone, not trying to fix anything, just stay grounded while others rest. And, to stay real in the world gets quieter if you stay real, if you stay connected, you stay true. And to keep your heart online without forcing stuff, right? That's very, very important. And this isn't the end of something, this quiet pullback. It's a reset. It's a redo. And we've been doing it throughout history. Again, it reminds me of the movie The Matrix. I've always now said that The Matrix is a documentary, not a movie. And they did a reset 7 times, which in numerology, 7 represents truth, right? So I found that to be a cool Easter egg. But, nothing's being demanded from you. So move into that stillness, move into that silence, and you'll notice this this frequency that I'm talking about. And it's again, just not trying to fix anything, and it's not the end of something. It's just a reset. And decompression always looks like pulling back before moving forward, and the tide goes out before it returns. The quiet comes before the reorganization, right? And it may feel lonely to you. I know that I don't talk to as many people, family, friends. I talk to more of my fur baby and my wife than anybody now. But it can make feel lonely. That means that it's the right track, right? If it feels like people are disappearing, remember that this might be the pause before something more honest emerges from yourself. And the quieter isn't the question isn't who's leaving when you move into a quiet pullback. It's who comes back more than before to know thyself. So that's today's message. The quiet pullback, I see it happening with myself, with my students, with my clients, with world events, even with people that used to be social. COVID may have had something to do that, put us in our Zoom, squares of connection. The workforce changed, moving to a hybrid. I remember there was no hybrid. I could telework once a month in the federal government when I first started. Then it became twice in a pay period. Then it became half-time. Then it became during COVID full-time. And then it was back to a hybrid half-time. So the environment changes us. The material world will change us in how we evolve and how we adapt and how we are Gumby on the wrecking ball of life. So I hope that makes sense. And it's okay to go into the quietness because that, like I said, that quietness that we're moving into, if it feels like people are disappearing from your life, that's okay because you're changing your frequency, you're changing your thoughts and who you are. But this just is a pause. Practice the pause before something more honest of yourself emerges. So I hope that makes sense. It's not that you're leaving; it's how you're going to come back from this. So leave a comment in the section if that resonates with you or you find that to be helpful. And then I'm going to just do I'm going to share something, a few slides with you, and then we'll end the show. Something I think will give you perspective. I do want to say the song today was called "When I'm in Motion" by R&B Soul. Just for copyright purposes, all my music is copyright free, trademark free. They can claim copyright, but I don't have to pay them. But I always give a shout out to any of the music that I use in my shows. And this is called "When I'm in Motion" by R&B and Soul. I think we'll close the show with another step by Ruby Amanafu, who I love her as an artist. Oh, maybe one day I'll get to meet her. I use a lot of her music. Or this What We Doing by Sidvice. So I always give a shout out to the musicians. So, all right, let me cue this up. Let me get some music going. I want to share a slide with you if I can, to talk about emotions, because that's a big part of it too, is how do you process these emotions and everything that you're going through. And one of the things that I have learned over my development, over my mentorship, over my teachings, over my podcasts, over my articles, and this is one of the steps that I've used to identify emotions, because if you don't identify them and you let the emotions just build up within you, eventually it's going to become like a volcano. And this is where, in relation to the quiet pullback, this is where I'm seeing people get very dysfunctional or very unhealthy. Again, I'm speaking on my own journey as well, from lost relationships to careers to friendships. But this, I don't know who did this slide, so I can't source it, and I can't give credit where credit's due. But let me just share this slide with you to kind of give you that perspective of how to process our emotions. And this is something that I came across years ago. Bear with me one sec here. It's thinking. There we go. All right. So you should see up how to process your feelings. And this is something I learned when I was going through hypnotherapy, because I was feeling a lot, again, the burdens and the blessings of what I do and what I know and what I see coming. Not always at 100%, but many times the things that I've talked about, podcast about, and wrote about have come into my own reality. And so one of the things that I have worked with is how to process your feelings of what you see going on. There's current events that are taking place that, you see with your own eyes, and it's right out of an Orwell 1984 book. Oh, they'll tell you what you've seen and what you're hearing isn't what you're seeing and what you're hearing. No, I saw a woman get shot in a car moving away, right? People would disagree with that and say, oh, she was trying to run the guy over, two different perspectives. And that creates the emotion, that creates the anger, it creates the anxiety, the depression, the uncertainty. Even for some of you, maybe suicide ideations start to come into mind, like what's the point? And so what I've learned to do, and I hope that you'll find this helpful in your journey of awakening and healing and transformation as well, because the caterpillar can't get to the butterfly without an intense struggle in the cocoon, which means literally de-liquefying to a protein sack of goo, only to reemerge with a new body. And that's what spiritual awakening is. But if you start to process and have emotional intelligence, this is how you can process your feelings of what you're seeing. So the first one is pause and take a moment to acknowledge what you're feeling. What I saw the other day made me very angry. I am a victim. My family is a victim of violent crime. My brother was shot and killed with a handgun, execution style, 5 times. So anytime I see a murder with my own eyes and what I see logically, and then somebody tries to tell me that it's different, then that's not what happened, that makes me angry. That makes my blood pressure rise. That makes me like a peacock start to flare up, because I have a personal experience with violence, and my family is a victim of violent crime. My brother was murdered. And so I have to say, okay, pause and take a moment to acknowledge what I'm feeling. I'm acknowledging that, yes, I am very upset, and my own conscious bias, because I am associated with a family member being murdered. Okay, so I'm going to pause. I'm going to acknowledge that feeling. I'm very pissed off right now. I'm very agitated. All right. So what am I going to name it? I'm going to identify and label the emotion. Example, it can be anger, sadness, and or joy. In this case, I'm going to name it, and I'm going to name it because it's a real-time scenario that's taking place in our reality. I named it Minneapolis. And nothing against the people of Minneapolis, nothing against the state of Minneapolis. It just gives me what's going on with the people that are hurting right now in Minneapolis, and what's going on with the ICE raids, and what's going on, which in my opinion is a modern day Gestapo, just like the Nazis did. I'm not saying they're Nazis. I'm not saying that they're really good, police officers, and they're good ICE officers and people in law enforcement. But what I'm seeing is, when you cover your face and you identify yourself and you don't have a warrant, you're violating the Constitution. That is, let's bring it back to the Constitution, which I have right here as a veteran myself, because I swore to uphold the Constitution, not an administrative party, whether it's left, right, or center. And so I'm naming it Minneapolis because it helps me to identify it and move into that emotion of what I'm feeling. And then also the support. It's a reminder to say I can support the people that are going through these trying times right now. And then I'm going to feel it. I'm going to sit with the emotion without judging. Well, now I'm going to sit with it. So I've identified it, I've named it, I'm feeling it, but I'm not going to sit with judgment or try to suppress it. And then I'm going to ask the question, why did it trigger me? Why does it matter? It triggered me after feeling it, which felt horrible because I can relate to how that wife felt of the young lady that was shot in her car, which from my own days of law enforcement, that's not what you're trained to do. Minimal force necessary to compel compliance. Even with my days in the Coast Guard, that's not what you're supposed to do. So I feel it, and I feel very angry for what was done and the situation, how it unfolded. But I also ask, why did it trigger me? Because I just watched a person get murdered, and now I feel compassion for the witnesses that saw that, the doctor that they wouldn't allow to come in, right? And so then that helps me identify my triggers. Now that I've paused it, I've named it, I felt it, I asked why it triggered me, now I can release it. And what I can do is I can breathe deeply about it. I can get into my journal. Well, this is my dream journal. This would be my actual journal. This is my new court journal from Portugal. Um, but now I can release it, or I can talk it out. And this is where counseling is helpful. This is where I found spiritual counseling, grieving counseling, hypnotherapy, different mentors that have helped me to talk it out as well. Because by talking it out, it's a form of release. And then what's going to happen after all this curve, right? It's going to shift for you. And it's going to redirect your energy towards something constructive or calming. And that's what it's done for me today. By doing this process and going through all these different things, the shift is helping me to explain. We'll have to let the rule of law, we're a country of rule of law, play out to what's going to be done. And there are things in history where things are not done and people have had their rights violated and jeopardized. And that's where you get fights. That's where you get rebellion. That's where you get revolution. That's where you get civil war. Because there are people that will, and Einstein talked about this all the time, 3 things that run the world: fear, ego, and greed. Still relevant today. So this is how you're like, how can I reflect on this? How can I acknowledge this? How can I release this? And how can I shift it to something more calming and something more constructive? Who knows? I may be doing a podcast on this in the future from, the state of where we're at and what we're going through, right? So one of the other things I want to share with you before we call it a day is the difference of philosophy and science. And this is kind of a fun, these next few slides are just kind of fun. And again, I don't have any sources for you, so I can't give credit where credit's due. If you want to leave a comment, say, yeah, that's something I did, we can then talk about that. But, one of the things that I love about what I do from a philosophy standpoint, from a metaphysical standpoint, is I found this slide that I'm sharing with you. Once it comes up here, just a second. Here we go. Philosophy. So this is the difference of what's going on, and what caught my eyes, because this is Metaphysical Meetup with the Intuitive Prospector. Philosophy is like being in a dark room and looking for a black cat, right? That's philosophy. You're in a dark room, you're looking for a black cat, you talk about it, you describe it, you may even hear it, but you don't necessarily see it. Then we move into the metaphysics construct. It's like being in a dark room and looking for a black cat that isn't. Is the black cat there, or is the black cat in a different state of being? Is it in a different vibration? Is it in a different state of consciousness? Is it in a metaverse, right? And then we get into theology, and theology is backed by a lot of religions, right? It's like being in a dark room and looking for a black cat that isn't there and shouting, I found it. And you see that with religion all the time. People believe without any validations, and that's where they talk about belief and hope, and that's great. But we as humans also want to be able, to validate, to touch, to see it, to believe it. Where I always teach people, see it here, and then or believe it here, and then you'll start to see it. But it's kind of funny. It's like being in a dark room and looking for a black cat that isn't there, and then shouting, I found it, but there's no black cat. And then of course science reminds us it's like being in a dark room and looking for a black cat using a flashlight, right? So when you connect all these together, this is a lot of what I'm about, different perspectives. And again, spirituality is more about a divinity within you. It's about, Rumi talked about this. I looked in temples, churches, and mosques, but I found the divine within my heart. That comes from, the late 12th century mystic and poet who talked about looking within. Even Jesus in his own writing, in scripture and outside of scripture, letters that weren't put into today's modern Bible, Jesus reflected on this. There's a great book called the Gnostic Gospel according to St. Thomas. And St. Thomas, we always hear about doubting Thomas. Thomas wrote about Jesus' perspectives, and a lot of what his perspectives were about the divinity within, not outside of the material world. But it's been fun finding God in places that the church told me not to look, right? So that's been kind of a fun thing in this journey. But I wanted to share that slide with you just to give you perspective. And again, leave your comments, leave your comments. Leave your perspective, leave your views. You may agree with it, you may disagree with it, that's fine. We can always agree to disagree at the end of the day and still be civil and be respectful and being kind. This one that I wanted to share with you, because I found this to be true with my own awakening, with my own modalities of learning, with my deep learning with plant medicines, is a spiritual awakening. Here, I'll just give it a sec here. Zoom's being a little slow. It takes a second. Um, a spiritual awakening isn't a moment, it's a process. It's a thousand small realizations and a million tiny shifts. And one of the tiny shifts that I'm talking about today is the pullback, the quiet pullback, and an endless journey of unlearning and healing and becoming. I will say that again, an endless journey of unlearning, because a lot of times we're taught many things. And in the spiritual awakening, you're going to have to unteach yourself, which means learn behaviors, maybe what your parents instilled with you, maybe what a religion's instilled with you, maybe what a young childhood experience instilled within you. But it is a endless journey of unlearning and healing and becoming. That's why we say we're human beings, because we're trying to be, not do. And a lot of us do and not be. You don't wake up all at once. You rise little by little into the person you were always meant to be. And I love this slide because look at this. There's your extra dimensional beings. There's a rift of a timeline. And again, the universe is a spiral because time is not a straight linear line. It's, what you repeat completes, the lesson repeats until it completes, and what we resist persists. That's why we talk about the spirituality being, a spiral, not a linear straight line. And then the last one I'll leave you with, I found this to be, like I said, again, not everybody's going to agree with this viewpoint or this perspective, but I personally, when I watched The Matrix years and years ago, 25 plus years ago, I think it was the late 90s when The Matrix came out, the first Matrix, not the other two are movies. The first Matrix, I think, is a documentary sharing and saying a lot to us right before our eyes. Television, channeling, program. And if you are woken up beyond the Matrix, this is why you'll agree with me. And if you've not experienced this, this is probably why you will disagree with me. And again, I don't have any sourcing for this. Otherwise, I give you a total shout out, totally acknowledge. I don't plagiarize my stuff. I'll give credit where credit's due. But if you woke up beyond the Matrix, not everyone will get this message. But if you're still reading, you've already been chosen. And many are called if you were chosen. You just didn't wake up to chase money. You didn't just wake up to do the same thing again. You woke up because your soul is here on assignment. You're here at Earth Life School with soul amnesia. And there's something bigger happening in your life. Even if you can't see it, you may feel it. You may also know it. The people you've lost, the pain you've carried, the nights you've questioned it all, that wasn't punishment, it's preparation. And I say that with importance because this is exactly where I was when my father-in-law died, when my brothers died, and many people around me were dying, friends, committing suicide. These are things of, am I part of this? Am I being punished by some karmic cycle that I did in a previous life? No, it's not punishment, it's preparation, because the loss teaches us what's worth, what has worth. And that includes your life, that includes the people around you, that includes this planet, that includes the time you have left on this planet, because this is life school, right? And you were built to go deeper, to see beyond the illusions, to break the chains that your family, your friends, and even, yes, your younger self didn't have the power to break. Live like you've already seen the ending and know you win. Live like you've already seen the ending and know you win. That's powerful stuff, y'all. And if that resonates with you, leave a comment. I'd love to get your perspective. I'll just check the comments real quick. Or if you have a question for me, shoot. Let me know where you're coming in from. Let me know what's going on in the journey, and we can talk about it. So let me get over to my page. Make sense, y'all? Make sense? Great topic for definitely feeling the frequency change. Yeah, Kara, I believe I'm with you, my friend, and that's why I come on Fridays to talk about this, to share relative consciousness and what I'm seeing in the world and where we're going. And again, stop doom scrolling. Get off, your smart technology. Get away from the television and the programming and what you're channeling, and move into that quiet pullback. Move into that stillness. Move into that silence. So I'll just give it one more minute. If you have a question for me, or if you're one of my subscribers, you want a quick card pull or a quick inspirational quote or a poem, again, you'll know that you're a subscriber because you'll have a badge next to your name. And again, if you want to become a subscriber in 2026, you can go to marclainhart.com and click on my subscribers page. That'll get you to the Diamonds Hub link, my Patreon prospectors. I know my Patreon prospectors, so they're both different subscription services. They're both great. And then remember, the first Friday of every month is Diamonds Days, where you get access through the Zoom platform in a morning session for my international audience and an afternoon session for my local audience here, or in anywhere in between. But it's the first Friday of every month, so we'll be back on February 6th. Will be that first Diamond Days for my paid subscribers. If you're a free subscriber, that doesn't count. You got to be a paid subscriber to get the Q&A with me on the first Friday of every month. So, all right, Kara. So you can see Kara's got a badge next to her name. She has been following the journey. She's a subscriber. So I'm happy to pull a card. I've got 14 decks today, my friend. Give me a number of what deck you want, because that helps with the messaging and your free will and choice. Tell me 1 through 14, and I'll pull the deck, and then we'll actually do a shuffle for you. So when you're ready, Kara. And anybody else that's a subscriber, and again, you can do exactly what Kara's doing, or Tara, you're a subscriber too. So Tara, if you have a question for me, happy to respond to you. And again, first Friday of every month is for my paid subscribers. Number 11, you got it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. All right. So the deck chosen off camera, I've got 14 decks that are ready to go. Here's deck 11. You picked today, you picked the Flower Sentience deck. And so I'm going to you can see me shuffling, because it's the message for you. I'm just the messenger. I'm just the delivery guy, right? I'm the UPS Amazon spiritual guru delivering your message. So when you type stop in, when you hear the word stop in your mind, hit the keyboard, type in stop. And while you're doing that, I will just shuffle the deck. And that's the card that will be revealed for your message, Kara. All right. So you pick deck 11, which is a great spiritual number in numerology for teaching. And now I'm just looking for the word stop in the comments. And that's the card that we'll pull. Carlos, my friend, I don't see a badge. I appreciate the anniversary follower, but I don't see a subscription badge for you. Tara says I'll pick 5. So Tara will be up on deck. If you want to be a subscriber, Carlos, click that link, become a Diamond Sub subscriber, and happy to pull a card for you. So we're just waiting on Kara to type in stop in the keyboard. We're working quantumly through the digital aspect. And when I see that word stop, that's when I see it come up, that's the one I'll do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you picked, Tara, the Rumi deck. I was looking real quick. So Kara, type in stop when you're ready. Shuffling again from the beginning, waiting for Kara to type in stop. Real time. Kara, hello. If you're typing in the comments, I'm not seeing it. There we go. Okay, stop. There we go. All right. Thank you. All right, and then Tara, you're up with deck 5, which, like I said, is a Rumi deck. I'll pull that right now. This is deck 5. Give it a second. We'll shuffle. But for you, Kara, yep, I got you. I got you, hun. Sometimes it can be delayed. The card that I pulled today is actually the number 54. So from a numerology standpoint, the 5 represents freedom, love, adventure. The 4 represents what you put in, you get out, hard work. Together, 5 plus 4 equals 9, which is all about completion energy. And the card that you pulled is called the Gladoli. I don't know if I'm saying this right. I apologize if I'm not. I'm not good with flowers, but this is the Flower Sentience deck. But the message is this. The Gladoli are like a ladder to heaven, reaching and reaching with their splendid colors, creating a magnificent rainbow of perfumed colors. That's the flower itself. It's actually a beautiful flower. Actually reminds me of something you see in the tropics. They symbolize faith, determination, and consistency. Never forgetting and never giving up. They bring the strength you need if you allow them to do so. Believe in great blessings. They are the flower of the gladiators and call upon you to be a gladiator at this time. Ooh, that's a powerful card, Kara. Good pull. Good pull, my friend. Be a gladiator at this time and believe in great blessings. Beautiful card. And those are the type of messages you can get if you become a subscriber, Carlos. All right. Tara, when you're ready, type in the word stop and put it in the comment section, and I will just be shuffling for your message to be revealed. So again, this is for my subscribers only because I usually don't do live readings. That's why I have the Diamond Day, first Friday of every month. So Carlos, love to see you become either a Patreon prospectors or a Diamond Sub subscriber, because this is what you get to do on Fridays for hanging out with me. Also head over to my YouTube channel, y'all. We're about to hit 55,000, 53,000 right now subscribers, and there's a lot of shows over there, including I just posted my podcast from Wednesday. So Kara says this tracks. Yeah, it usually does. I find that to be the synchronicities or the coincidences stuff. Perfect. Here's your card, my friend. Einstein talked about this. Carl Sagan talked about this. Hawkins talked about this all the time. About Carl Jung talked about this. Synchronicities and coincidences are God's way of remaining anonymous. Whoever or whatever God is for you. I don't tell people what that is because I don't know. I know that there is something after death. I just can't. My small pea brain can't define what that is. All right. So here's your beautiful card. This is for Tara. And it says the human gift. So this reminds me, if you look at the card, this reminds me of like an angel or an ascended master or an inspirer. And this is us here on earth living life school, right? But Tara, here's your message. Such attention is offered by the beloved with sweetness and generosity, yet such jealousy comes from you with so much doubt and suspicion. Do you berate yourself, blazing angel, because you have moments where you cannot trust and love more than you believe in your fear? Rise now from your doubts and admonishments and let your human self be loved. Even with all the doubt, you are a cherished one of the great beloved and always shall be. Be kind to your heart. Be kind to your heart. And I think that's a message, Tara, that not only you could resonate, but I think we could all resonate. The human gift. We're really good at self-sabotaging, but many times we forget that we are cherished, we are beloved, and and always shall be. Right? That's be kind to your heart. Be kind to your heart. So I hope does that make sense, Tara? All right. So again, if you got if you're a subscriber, you'll see the badge. Both thank you to Tara and Kara, Kara and Tara, or Tara and Kara, however you want to say it. Thank you to both for following the journey. Follow me here on Fridays. Follow me over on the closed page, which is the Intuitive Prospector subscribers page, Diamond Hub, or Patreon Prospectors. I appreciate you, and it helps me buy coffee. I don't make a lot of money off my subscriptions. It's just my time, and it helps purchase good coffee. So I really appreciate both of you. And again, I know Carlos, you wanted a card, my friend, but let's get you into the subscription services. So next time you come back, you'll have a little badge next to your name, and I can be like, "Hey, Carlos, pick a deck, pick a book." It's not just cards. We have dowsing rods, we have spirit box, we have certain books off camera that I can pull. I've got 14 decks. There's a lot of tools, just like a surgeon, a lawyer, a carpenter, a plumber, a welder. I have many different tools in my spiritual tool bag that I can pull out to help you on your journey. That's why I do what I do. I always tell people I can lead a human in knowledge, but I can't make them think. This is where I come into play. So if there's no other questions, I appreciate you, Carlos, hanging out, though. Appreciate you being here and being part of the community. If there's anybody else that has a question, that has a badge or subscribers, and you'd like to ask a question, please do so. I'm going to cue up the music to take us home, to shut us down. Have a beautiful weekend. I will give a shout out to my Seattle Seahawks, who play tomorrow against the 49ers. I usually don't bring sports in, but we are the #1 seed, and we have a chance to go to the Super Bowl, which I had an amazing soul adventure to go see the Super Bowl in Phoenix years ago, where we lost to the New England Patriots, still a top 5 Super Bowl of all time. Even though we lost, it was a great memory and a great experience, and that's what life is all about. So I'm rooting for my Seattle Seahawks tomorrow, which will put us one game closer to the next Super Bowl. So I appreciate all of you. If there's no other questions, you're welcome, Tara. Good to see you. Thanks for hanging out. If there's no other questions, or Carlos, let us know where you're from too. love to see where people are tuning in, because that's the reach of, social media. That's the reach of technology. So I'm going to cue up our song. Let's see. Do we want another step, or this is what we doing? Give me a vote here. I'll actually pick the next song. Somebody give me a vote. Another Step by Ruby Amanafu, or This Is What We Doing by Sid Vice. I don't think I'm saying that right. So the next person to comment gets to pick the song to close us out. And I hope you have a great rest of your day, great rest of your weekend. We are moving towards more sunlight, staying light out longer, which I love. I hate the darkness when it gets dark at 3:30. So anybody want to pick the next song? The choices are This What We Doing or Another Step. Who wants Another Step, or who wants This Is What We Doing? I haven't played any of these songs before, so I don't know what they sound like. So it's kind of a unscripted improv. What do you want? This Is What We Doing or Another Step? First person to comment gets to pick the song. I will share the board. We'll close it out. And again, this has been Metaphysical Meetup with the Intuitive Prospector, or Marc Lainhart. And I appreciate all of you, and I look forward to prospecting with you in the future, whether it's the diamond within, which are many, or the many hidden gems that are all around us that have yet to be revealed to the world. So buckle up. All right, first person to comment gets to pick the next song. You want Another Step or This Is What We're Doing? You choose. And you don't have to be a subscriber for this. I'll just take the next comment. This Is What We're Doing or Another Step? Which one sounds more inspirational? Oh, sorry, Kara, I'm so sorry. I saw thank you, and then I didn't see This Is What We're Doing. So Kara's picked This Is What We're Doing. I'm so sorry. I did not even see that. I'm just rereading. I'm waiting for the comments to pull up. So Kara's picked the song This Is What We're Doing by Sid Vice. It's a hip hop song, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. And again, until our next soul adventure together, be kind, be caring, be compassionate. Most importantly, whatever you're doing, I know that there's a lot going on in our world, but dare to dream, dare to explore, dare to live. And I promise you, and maybe even do that quiet pullback that I talked about today, but I promise you, you will discover the diamond within and the many hidden gems that are all around us. I'll see you next time here on Metaphysical Meetup with the Intuitive Prospector. Until then, if you want to learn more, hear more, read more, go down to marclainhart.com or internet search Intuitive Prospector, and we can do some prospecting together for your own spiritual goal. All right. Have a great rest of your day. Namaste. Namago. Cheers.
What are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? This what we doing. This what we doing. What are we doing? Go get it. That's you. Mr. College, trust process, no skips. Make a deposit, go in. Don't feel awesome, don't it? 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 Put your people on it. When you can't afford it, it's a reason for it. Y'all gon' be rewarded. It might take a moment. This what we doing. This what we doing. What are we doing? This what we doing. This what we doing. You got the components when you can't afford it. It's a reason for it. Y'all gon' be rewarded. It might take a moment. This what we doing. This what we doing. What are we doing? This what we doing. This what we doing. This what we doing. Get them out the way, not today. That's some vacate. The kid got some money coming through. That's a play date. Ducks in a row and they all cooperate at the proper rate. Out the way, fixing up the cave, now I'm a hibernate. Everything in moderate, it's not a race, let's march your bodies late. Used to run a fader, now they automate, it's all the rage. Everything in moderate, it's not a race, let's march your bodies late. Used to run a fader, now they automate, it's all the rage. Put your people on it, when you can't afford it, it's a reason for it. Y'all gon' be rewarded, It might take a moment. This what we doing. This what we doing. What are we doing? This what we doing. This what we doing. You got the components when you can't afford it. It's a reason for it. Not gonna be rewarded. It might take a moment. This what we doing. This what we doing. What are we doing? This what we doing. This what we doing. This what we doing. What it's all about. I put my foot all over season pro. Plan on brand on
One
stand on
planet,
NIE.
7.3 billion people. Only one you. Life offers us many opportunities and learning experiences. Are you ready to explore and discover this beautiful planet, the life and energy all around us, the spiritual world, and what is unseen, along with your own personal soul adventure? Marc Lainhart, the intuitive prospector, is the spiritual connection you have been prospecting for. Internationally known as a tested and professional clairvoyant medium and spiritual advisor, Marc's work as a metaphysical teacher, medical instructor, radio show host, inspirational writer, and hiking guide are here to help you on a journey of self-discovery, healing, inspiration, education, and a whole lot of spiritual awesomeness. Dare to dream. Dare to explore. Dare to live. For more information on Marc's spiritual practice in Seattle, Washington, please visit marclainhart.com or internet search The Intuitive Prospector.